We're good.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of the PoArtMo show, run by the inspirational platform Auroras and Blossoms. I'm David Ellis. I'm here with my co-host and co-founder of Auroras and Blossoms, Sandrine Marwar. And we also have Joshua Grant, an excellent author who has interviewed us in the past, and we wanted to have him as a guest. So what I'll do first is, before we dive straight into the first part of the show with Josh, we're going to talk about the second part of the show, which we will run after we've interviewed Josh and done the questions with him, just to go through some news bulletin items and news things that have come out from Auroras and Blossoms. We've actually launched our issue number 6 today of the Poetry Journal. Later on, we're also going to be talking about the Paraiku, which is a brand new poetry form that we've created at Auroras and Blossoms. We're going to talk about royalty payments that we're now offering on our magazines and our anthologies. So that's a really kind of interesting development there, because not a lot of people are doing that kind of thing. We've got a new book of creative prompts for writers and artists that we've published. So we're going to talk about that. We've got a new readers column for our magazines. So we're going to talk about that and how you can submit your own questions to us for us to answer, for me and Sandrine to answer. And we're also going to talk about our PoArtMo collective that we've formed, which is a group of artists that have formed a collective to do a series of projects and things, and that's all through Auroras and Blossoms as well. But as I say, so the first part of the show, we would very like to give a warm welcome to Joshua Grant. And I'm just going to read his bio out now, so it's going to be a bit informal. Joshua loves to read, write and play video games, and occasionally read up on the crazy science that's happening in the world. But most of all, he loves just getting people together to love, laugh and grow alongside each other. Currently, Josh makes a living teaching and working with kids in various environments, with the occasional novel always in the works. He's also a huge supporter of independent authors, whom he promotes via his website Diabolic Shrimp and his new YouTube show Diabolic Shrimp. Josh also dedicates part of the proceeds of his book sales to important causes, including ocean exploration, the No Hungry Initiative, ALS research, Children's Hospital, and the prevention of youth suicide. And we're showing our banners. You'll be able to click on the website links to Josh's own website and his YouTube page. So wonderful to have you here, Josh. And I believe you're going to talk to us about a couple of books you wanted to mention that are very kind of dear to you, that you've published.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so great to be on your guys' show. I had a chance to interview Sandrine and David just about a month ago now, actually. And it was a blast. And you both are such wonderful people that love to support other people, and I appreciate you. So I'm really thrilled to be on your show. It's weird to be on this end of the receiving end, but yeah, I'll share with you a couple of books today. I've written several books. I'm a best-selling author, and but a few of my more recent ones that I've gotten out there, and especially for this channel, it would be fun to talk about, is Cool Shrunk, The Tale of the Onion Knight. It's a children's book. It's a poem. And I wrote it back in college for the fun of it. And it just has beautiful drawings done by another author named Jolene Skaverick, who I also interviewed. And it's just a lot of fun, and just like lighthearted fun, and it talks about why you cry when you cut onions. And so it's like has like food monsters, and so it's up for a Caldecott Award, which is like the top award for art when it comes to children's books. And then my other one, this is one of my more recent bestsellers. I recently became a comic creator about 6 months ago and rose to number 1. I was competing with Batman, which surprised me. Actually, I wasn't expecting to like get up there so quickly, but I made The Lost Boy, which it has his 4th episode out now. It's I'm working on completing the first season of that, but it's a kind of a fun, gritty retelling of the Peter Pan story, where Peter becomes like a vigilante crime fighting superhero, and it's kind of in the same vein, that kind of realistic vein, like The Dark Knight or something like that, or Daredevil. And so I just been having loads of fun, actually, kind of in that visual medium after being a novelist for so many years. So
I've had a friend that was like that as well, actually, Josh. He started off on novels, but he's always harbored the desire to be a comic book sort of person. So he kind of teamed up with illustrators, because he doesn't draw, but he just spills out loads and loads of words. So he's another sort of person that he was kind of writing the sort of dark fantasy, sort of darker sci-fi stuff, and then he then started doing his own comics as well. But he was a very big comic book fan. I mean, have you always been a comic book fan yourself since you were young?
Yeah, I was like, weirdly enough, I was like, I actually got into comic books more as an adult than I did as a kid. Like my brother Nate, he's my oldest brother. He was the huge comic book collector and still is. He has like 5,000 comics, and he was the one that actually kind of inspired me to make a comic and jump into that medium, because it's like he and I would just talk comics, and he wrote a couple of comics as well that he's going to get published, and but he and I were just talking comics all the time, and I just thought, what a fun like idea with this like telling Peter Pan as this like crime fighter, but I was going to write it as a novel originally because that's what I did, and it's like, and it just doesn't work as a novel. It's like it has to be a comic, it's like superheroes. And I mean, I grew up watching the X-Men. So it's like, that was my kind of thing, is like cartoons and video games. But like, I got into comics more as an adult. And of course, nowadays with Marvel being big, it's like fun to see it all on screen now. So yeah, I decided to jump into that. And Cool Shrunk is my pet project, but I didn't actually expect that one to get big. I just did that honestly for fun. And I work with kids. I used to be a teacher, an elementary teacher. And huge part of my writing is like giving back, as I mean, I give a percentage of all my books to like, you mentioned all those good causes about like disease research. That's what like The Lost Boy goes towards, like disease research, because like the person who originally wrote Peter Pan also gave towards disease research. So I do the same thing towards like children's hospitals and things. And so like, I wanted to like give back by like giving like a children's book that was just fun and lighthearted and would help get younger kids to read. And I just want to go out there and read to them. That's what I wanted it for. I wanted to go around to classrooms and just like have a book to read to kids. Cause like my original book that I published is a horror book, and it's more for adults. And I had all these kids when I was like a teacher, they would show up like, Mr. Grant, I've got your book. And I'm like, oh, let me talk to your parents about that. Like, I don't know if you should be having that one. I don't know. And so I wanted something more for like their age group. And I would love to like go out there and read. The pandemic is kind of in the way of that at the moment, of course. And so one day when we're all out of these COVID times, I'm going to go and read to kids, and it'll be fun.
I always think with like horror as well, it's quite funny in relation to like trying to pitch it at the level of kids, because if you go too far with it, then it becomes adult horror, and then it would get too scary. So I suppose you've always got to have this kind of sort of lid you've got to put on it. You can't push the envelope too far with the horror. I suppose with some of the Goosebumps sort of stuff, you look at something, you think, some of it's quite sort of scary, but you just think, where do you kind of draw the line in terms of, as I say, if you cross that line, then you might end up, it'd be unsuitable for children.
Yeah, well, I find it ironic though. It's like, I used to be a horror writer, and like I said, my horror books are more for adults. They have cussing and gore and things like that. But like my children's book here, like my good old like Cool Shrunk or whatever, it's like an adventure. It's like I try to make it like Zelda. He fights like food monsters, and for some reason, like Amazon decided to categorize it in children's spine tingling terror, and so just because it has monsters, I guess, I don't know. So it's like, so I guess I can't escape horror. I don't know. It's scary. All my writing is scary for people, I guess.
I'm always curious about titles. How did this title come to you? Like Cool Shrunk, the Tale of the Onion Knight.
Yeah, that one, like I said, I wrote it back in college. Part of my family is German, and my family used to live in Germany, and outside of Frankfurt, and so I actually didn't grow up speaking German or anything, but I took German in college or in high school, and so I used to speak German fairly fluently. I'm really rusty now, but Cool Shrunk is actually, it's spelled differently than it is on the title, but Cool Shrunk is actually like the German word for refrigerator. And so I named my mysterious world like Cool Shrunk because it's like the refrigerator, Mm-hmm. And I wanted it to be like kind of like a medieval book. So it's like I was like the Geoffrey Chaucer, like the Canterbury Tales. They would have like the tale of the so and so and the tale of so and so, and they had a bunch of different characters, and that's what I did with that. So it's like the tale of the Onion Knight, and the next one I'm working on, the next one is like Cool Shrunk, like the song of the Salsa Samurai, and so it'll get there eventually. It's just like these little myths.
Wow, it's interesting. And how, is there a particular story that triggered your desire to write that book?
So, well, it's like Cool Shrunk itself, like I said, it's like it's my pet project. I never actually ever expected to turn it into an actual book. In college, I never planned to be a writer. I never planned to be an author. And like, but in college, I would always write stuff though, just because I was interested, of course. And but I just wrote Cool Shrunk in like the side of a binder. It's like my original writing of it is all along my chemistry notes, because I was just staring off into space in chemistry, like writing about an onion knight for the fun of it. And I went back through my like all my notes in college, and there's like the weirdest stuff in there. I like drew a tree that's like trying to eat somebody. I don't know. And so it's like I would just like doodle on the side, but it was just like my fun little. I thought it'd be fun to write like a children's book someday or something. And but I never actually expected to publish that. But last year I was like, I want to go into like the visual medium. I want something that's just fun visually. I have a nephew that loves like the video game Zelda, and I was like, I would love to help like especially like younger boys, like help some of them get into like reading a little bit quicker, and and having something like a quest and with monsters, but it's also like lighthearted and teaches like a moral. And so that's really where that one came from.
Yeah, interesting. And how, because we're talking about children's books, how do you factor positivity and inspiration into your work so that you encourage more kids to read?
Yeah, definitely. I was like, even my like one for adults, right? My horror books would be like the darkest things I wrote. And they have like, it's like people die. It's a horror book, it's like, and, but even those, every one of my books is built around like a positive moral message. Like, and it's all kind of comes from like, I guess stems from my life. Like I've had some big tragedies in my life, and I've lost people I can't afford to lose, essentially. And, and a lot of my writing is built around that, but it's built around that positive message. For me, if you go back like a decade, I had a major tragedy in my life, and I just didn't think I'd ever be happy again. I didn't think I'd ever experience joy. And I kind of dedicated my life to try and help other people be joyful. And through that, I actually, regained my joy and became a joyful person. And it's just learning that there is hope even in dark places. That was kind of my horror books. That's what that's all about. And whereas my children's book, of course, is like that one was just like, that was just like lighthearted fun is what I originally aimed it for. But I was like, ooh, I can kind of like have this like message about courage and, for kids, and that like every person kind of has these layers like the onion, it's like, in that you can like, within your onion layers, you can be courageous too. And you can put toward, serving other people. And so all my books are like geared around like every one of my books at the center of it, like is love, essentially, is the heart of it. Like Cool Shrunk is kind of like the outlier. It's more just like a fun adventure with a courageous onion, but it's like, but it also has at that center, like you can be courageous, like you can be a hero. Like you already are a hero, I guess, is kind of like the message I'm kind of putting into that one. It's like, you just got to believe in yourself, essentially. And that's what that kind of book is about. But all my books are kind of like that. It's like that kind of like love is at the center. You could be hopeful in a hopeful place and things like that.
Looks like adults could read your books.
It's like I'd say like I typically write in like the young adult genre, so a lot of it's geared towards teens, but it's like, but all of my books are very like sometimes I think I write too high for like kids, it's like I have very like adult themes in all of my books, and I mean, my horror books are for adults. I don't even market that to kids or anything like that. I don't mention it to kids when I'm like talking to them, and that's always the one they end up buying, weirdly. But it's like, but yeah, like Cool Shrunk is my only one that I really like wrote like for kids. Like my comic book is for all ages. Actually, it's geared towards teens, of course, but it's like gritty and it's more serious.
Well, that's really, really interesting hearing about those books. Basically, can we find a bit more about you now, Josh? I mean, what's your artistic background? When did you start sort of dabbling? How did you start sort of dabbling originally in art? Because these are your most recent books, but obviously you've got previous ones as well. And so where did art sort of come into your life? So what is effectively, what triggered your artistic background?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a great question. I was like, I like I come from like an artistic family. Like my grandma and my mom, they were fantastic artists. My next oldest brother Matt was like the painter and stuff, and so I had like. And like my brother is a hip hop artist, and all this is like
Wow.
all my, like literally all my siblings like are super artistic in one way or another. And for me, I was kind of like the one, like I never played a music instrument growing up. Like I can like clap decently, I guess. I don't know. It's like I never considered myself like artistic or anything like that. But I was actually a very shy person. And then growing up, I got thrown into theater, and then I became a professional actor, and I acted on the stage for several years. And so that actually like drew me out, like just as a person, and helped me be a better communicator and be able to do things like this, of course. And so that might be kind of where some of that art started. Middle school, I had a teacher that I wanted to write like a scary story. Like we got this like option where we could just write a story, and we were reading Edgar Allan Poe at the time. And so I was like, ooh, I want to write something creepy like that. And so I wrote this like spooky story. Like reading it now, it's like really not scary at all. But it's like I wrote this like spooky story set in like the Arctic, and it was gonna be like The Thing or something. And I wrote this thing, and like my teacher though, it was like a big confidence boost for me. Like she wrote like some simple comment like, ooh, scary or something. But I'm like, ooh, maybe I can actually write something spooky. And then Lord of the Rings came out when I was in high school. And so I wanted to write like fantasy. And so we would do like standardized tests, like CSAP is what it was called for us. And when you were done with it back then, you used to just be able to like sit there or go to sleep if you want. You just couldn't talk or go anywhere. So it's like, so I would just sit there and write like novels. So I guess standardized testing I can thank for allowing me to be more creative. I don't know. And I just kept up with it all the way up through college, and I was just writing, and then I just started reading in college. I actually never read growing up on my own time, and it was just kind of weird for me. It's like I never read any novels or anything. And then college, I just started reading and fell in love with like all these different books, and I was like, I'm never going to be that good. And I quit writing, and then a week later I wrote my very first book, which will never see the light of day, but I wrote my very first book, and I wrote like 3 books since then. And then I quit again for like 5 years and got back to it, and because I wanted to write a horror book. So it's kind of like that long standing, like, I don't know, it was always just kind of in the background in my life, but I eventually got there.
That's interesting. It's interesting to see what you went through, peaks and valleys and stuff like that. So you were talking about Poe earlier, and I know David will relate to it. He loves Poe. So who and what are your biggest influences as an artist and in life in general?
Nice. Okay. Wow. I was like, that's 2 like huge things. It's like I would say like as a writer, like the people that really like inspired my writing big time were Karen Travis. She was an author of Star Wars books, and I was reading that at the time. She just does character so well, and so I was like, ooh, I want to do like character like this. And then of course Lois Lowry, who wrote like Number the Stars and The Giver, and like her books, not a lot happens in them, but they have such wonderful description, and they're very poetic in a sense. And it's like, and they hit you in the heart. And I was like, I want to do something that emotionally impactful. That's what I was aiming for another book of mine called Nexus. It's like a young adult book about robots, but I wanted to do this like more emotional thing. I'm not sure if I achieved it, but then S.D. Perry. S.D. Perry's another author. She wrote like the novelizations for like the Aliens movies and stuff like that. But she's the one, when I wrote my horror book, I'm like, I got to be this good about gritty and like the description. And like, she's the one my writing originally emulated the most. So in writing, they're the ones that like had the most influence on my writing style. But weirdly, like my books are actually more inspired by video games than anything else. And so I grew up with like Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy is like, it's like a novel as a video game. Really. It's like, it's like a fantasy story, but it's just like the writing in it, and the dialogue, and like the music, it all just like hits you in the heart. And it's one of those things like a good book, when you put it down, it's like, you kind of feel sad and you want to cry, because you're like, oh, it was such a good book, and that was such a perfect ending. And I love those characters. And then that's always what I'm aiming for when I'm making books. It's like, I want to just like tell these really heartfelt stories is kind of what my big aim is. So it was really like, video games and a few books that like really like inspired like my art choices. But when it comes to life though, it's like, I have a long list. Like my family, my parents are all just fantastic people, and just like instilled love in our family. We had a lot of like struggles as a family, and through that though, it's like we are all together, and that's just from the love that my parents inspire, and just it's like that, and like I work with kids, and kids always inspire me, honestly, to be the best that I can be. Actually, weirdly, kids gave me a lot of the confidence in my life working with kids. Like they'll be brutally honest sometimes. So like, that's not very good. I'll give you your book back. But they're like, it's just like the simple joy that they get, or like, their problems sometimes are a bit simpler sometimes. And so it's like working with kids over the years has like really taught me a lot about just humanity in general, and kind of some of the need that's out there in the world. And a lot of that's honestly been some of the biggest like additions to my character, is just kids I've worked with over the years that have changed me. I never set out to work with kids, but I had a night when I was acting, and I just as a professional, and I just sat down in this hotel lobby, and I was just like, I just need something different in my life, and I have no idea what I want to do. And so I just kind of threw away my career. I had a really successful career. I was like a lead actor, and I just gave that up, and I was like, my mom was a teacher, so I'll try being a teacher, and it just made a huge difference in my life.
That's really, really wonderful. And if you were to have an unlimited, say, amount of time or amount of money or budget or anything like that, what would be your dream, say, art project? But what would be your dream? Could be a writing project, could be any kind of sort of project really at all. What would be your dream project?
Yeah, well, it's like, weirdly, it's like, I had this epiphany like 4 years ago where I was just like, I was working with this. I decided to go back and work with a summer camp for like a summer. I just wanted to work like part-time with like people that were passionate about working with kids. And I just wanted to be out there in the outdoors and just be crazy. And I went and did it. And I work with this camp, and I'm still working with them to this day. During the summers, I go back up and I teach theater, and I teach writing, and I teach all this stuff, but like engineering and stuff. But they like, the person who runs that camp just has the right heart for kids, but it kind of inspires you that it's like, you can kind of do anything. And through that, it's like, I don't know, I just decided to self-publish. I never wanted to self-publish before. I was going through like agents and stuff like that, and getting the rejection letters, and you know how it goes. And it's like, but like, I wanted to just like strike out on my own. I was like, I can do this. And I was like, I can make like a profit in like 5 years. And I was able to do that a lot faster, surprisingly, even though it's really, really hard, and it takes a lot more work than I ever expected, but if you're willing to work at it, like you can do it. And like, so like recently I decided to do that with these comics and with this children's book. I was like, it's going to be really expensive, but I'm going to just do it. And I did, even though I never expected to make money off these things. And they actually got big because I put a lot of effort into them. And so now I think I'm going off the deep end. I decided to really dedicate most of my money towards pretty much everything I'm making from books is all going into one big project that I have coming. It's a fantasy comic. I'm turning my fantasy novel, The Fifth Ascendant, into a comic. I'm doing the entire thing, and it's the longest novel I've ever wrote. It was like 700 pages long. It's like a nice paperweight, but I'm turning it into this like nice, cool visual comic. And I had to stop myself because I'm allowing it to like balloon. I'm like, I really want like a really cool professional map. So I hired a very professional fantasy map maker who does stuff for like Dungeons and Dragons and Game of Thrones. They like made the map for that. And so it's like, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to splurge, and I'm just going to go. And now I'm kind of like having to stop myself. Like, I'm just going to keep splurging. And like, so that's my project, that if I have all the money in the world, that's what I will work on. And that's what I'm currently working on, even though I definitely don't have all the money in the world. But I was like, but I'm just going to do it piecemeal, one at a time. And I've been doing some of the concept art myself just to, save a bit of money. And I'm actually getting really good at art lately, so I'm kind of proud. It's not good enough to actually be in the comic, but it's good concept art for the artist to look at. So that's my mission, the Fifth Ascendant comic, which will likely be out in August if I can get everything in a row.
Wow.
Are you going
I'll
to
turn it into a movie if I have to.
Are you going to go down the digital and print route? Are you actually trying to make sure it's available in print as well as digitally available as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like weirdly like my fantasy comic was kind of like my pathfinder for everything else. And so like fantasy, my Lost Boy. But like it's kind of been my pathfinder of kind of understanding like how much a page costs. And I learned how to format it myself. It's actually taught me a lot. I've actually become this like professional when it comes to comics, like doing the whole thing. Like so I do most of that myself, like layout and stuff, and then the artist takes care of like some pieces. And so they do like all the art, of course. And it's like Laszlo is the guy that does it now, and he just does an amazing job. But like that kind of taught me like what I can do. And so I will always, with every one of my books, always have a digital and a physical version. And typically like no one buys the physical version because it's just too expensive in a novel. But it surprised me when it came to comics that I could actually make my comic actually fairly cheap, even though it's all color and it's all like it's got like 30 something pages of art, and but it's actually cheaper than my novels, weirdly enough. And so like just because it's like a lot less pages, and so like it's taught me that I can actually do like kind of like the I'm still kind of going to look at the maximum limit of how many pages I can pack into a comic before it's too expensive and no one will buy it. But I will always have a physical and a digital version.
I think what you're saying there is like, for example, if you're talking about 30 pages, you're right. It's probably cheaper to do 30 pages of color comic book than say if you had 200 pages of a novel that had maybe like 5 maps in it or something that were in color. They would probably still charge you for color pages, even though you're printing in black and white ink.
Yeah, and they do it. Yeah, if people out there are looking to like start up your own book and stuff, that's something I discovered with Silly Tales from Albanon, was like a short story collection that I had, and I was originally going to do that as a comic book, but it was going to be like 100 pages, and I was like, that's too expensive. I don't know how that's going to work. And at the time I scrapped the comic book idea and I rewrote it as short stories, just like lighthearted, fun short stories, like fantasy ones. But like I did just a couple color pictures in there, but they charge you for every page like it's a page. And so that was kind of like my pathfinder of like, oh, that's way too expensive, because like the book was like, I think like 150 pages or something like that, and they charge you like 150 pages of like colored paper. So it ended up being like my shortest novel, but also like my most expensive novel. And so I kind of discovered that through that. So I was expecting that for my comics, but they ended up being like actually like affordable for the most part.
So basically what you're saying is that if you've got written work with just a very small number of pictures, you should say, okay, I'm not going to have plain old black for the text. I'm just going to have all the writing in purple or pink. Or
you might as well just splurge. They charge you just the same. But I mean, I work through like Kindle, Kindle Direct Publishing. So it's like it could be really it's likely a lot different for like if you go through a different publisher.
Yeah.
My last question for you.
The final.
We haven't talked about Diabolic Shrimp.
Yes.
I came across Diabolic Shrimp, I think 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was like, Sandrine, you were one of like our like founding members, really. It's like you were right in like the early days back when I was just had this crazy idea to open it up to the world. So
yeah, and I was blown away by the concept because you are such a fantastic supporter of indie authors. I've rarely seen it. Many people talk about, supporting others. They talk and actually don't do anything. But your platform, Diabolic Shrimp, is actually built around helping indie authors and also using the money that you make from selling your books to help very important causes. So could you tell us very briefly why you created Diabolic Shrimp and how people have responded to it over the years?
Certainly, yeah. So Diabolic Shrimp is like my weird giant experiment, I guess. It's like I've changed it a lot over the years. So it's like, but it was just my author's website originally. It was just me on there, and then I thought that was kind of lonely, and so like I opened it up originally to like let's get some other people on here. And I used to have this I threw it out there, and I originally had like 3 people I think signed up, and then but it was a lot different back then. It used to have to like pledge that you would do this and that and all this, and I realized I'm like, this is just too much, and I wanted to be different than like then, you know, I guess like when I first started, like as a self-published author, and especially as an indie author, it just shocked me like how hard it was to get noticed by anybody, of course. And it also surprised me, like kind of what you said, there was a lot of sites out there that have like a lot of like support, but it was like kind of like nebulous. It wasn't like solid support. And so I originally set it up like if you're going to be on here, you have to do this for other authors. And then like I realized I'm like, I can't expect that for other people, but if you want to make a difference in the world, you have to be that difference for starters. And so I just set out and I was like, I can't make other people do stuff, but I can like do it myself, I guess. And so that's kind of what I shifted it to. And I was like, I'm going to buy somebody's book if they come on this site. And that's what I started out doing, and just like buying books. But then I just had this epiphany once when like I think someone talked to me and they're like, hey, do you do reviews? And I didn't realize like authors badly yearned for reviews. And so I shifted my entire focus there. And that's when Diabolic Shrimp actually exploded. And we ended up with hundreds and hundreds of people just from doing like reviews. And then I just been shifting it ever since. And so it's like, but ultimately, I guess my goal was to like have a place where like people aren't constrained by a bunch of rules, because like, I mean, other people have to do that sometimes where they're like, this is only when you can post on this day or whatever. They kind of have to do that because like they don't have control. On my side, I have control. So it's like, it's not a place you can really like post your own stuff necessarily, but it all kind of comes through me, to be honest. But doing that kind of allows me to be like, hey, just reach out to me and I'll see what I can do for you, and I tried to open up, and I try to have like, my goal was like to have as many like free opportunities. Cause that was like what surprised me too, is like there's lots of places that you can like talk to people or get reviews or something, but it's always like, you have to give away your stuff. And as an author, you just can't do that. You can't just go like give away 60 books. It's like you're trying to make at least some money to be sustainable. I mean, we all love our work, and it's just like, you want everyone to read your work, but we also have to like be able to make some money off it. You can't just pay everyone to read your work, And so that was my goal, is like to give people reviews where they don't have to pay anything, where I'll find your book, and I just try to make it as simple as humanly possible. And then I always like throw in there extra things like, hey, come check out our YouTube and I'll give you this or something, it's like as well, because it has to be sustainable too, but it's like, but I try to have as many like free things on there that are no hassle for people. And it's been really like successful. It's like, I've had to shift it over the years and change some things over the years. And so it's like, and you lose some people, and there's always somebody griping at you when you're on the internet, to be honest. And so it's like, you always have like somebody griping, but like the response has been very positive. And now we have like the final piece that I set out to do when I started. I wanted like kind of a social media type piece where people can have author pages, and I wanted reviews, and I wanted a Shrimpy Awards contest, which I finally got out there, where people can submit their work and win money for it. And then I also, like, the last thing I wanted was a YouTube, and I finally started a YouTube show. You guys were both on it, and so it's like, and that's actually been like growing faster than I guess I expected it to. So that's been really fun to do, even though that's not my kind of like normal like. Like I said, I'm a very shy person. So it's like, it was kind of weird to have to like host a YouTube show and be on that and run the show. I was used to being on shows, but not like hosting one. So it's just been a lot of fun. So it's like, it has all these like elements of like, so if you're out there and you're an author and of any genre, I read everything, come check it out. Come check out that. I can see the link down there. So check out diabolicshrimp.com. If I'd love to have you on there. I try to be as personable as possible, even though now we have like thousands of people on there. So it's like trying to keep up with it. Sometimes it's kind of crazy.
Oh, that's really, really wonderful, Josh. And I guess we'll finish off our interview with you at this point to find out if there's any particular question you want to ask me and Sandrine.
Yeah, well, David, you and Sandrine are just so creative. And so I guess my big question to you, you mentioned right at the beginning of this broadcast, a new form of poetry that you created. I asked you on my show, like, if you guys were working on anything like new, because you both created your own forms of art. So what is this? Like, tell me a bit about this new form of poetry that you created.
Oh, that's part of the second part of the show.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll ask you a different one then. If you're announcing
we'll talk about it now because it will actually save us time. So it's perfect. David, you want to talk about it, or you want me to do it? Whatever.
I can try and talk about it. I can try and remember. See, the thing about whenever we create something new, Josh, it's trying to remember something off the top of your dome. Once you've created it, and to say, right, these are the rules. This is how it goes. It's fairly sort of simple. It's actually the second poetry form that we created in 2020, because the first poetry form we created was Kainku form, which was a very kind of inspirational, positive form that we went and took the best elements of what me and Sandrine do. She's very into Japanese poetry and haiku poetry, and I'm into found poetry. So we created a form based around those two sort of concepts for the Kainku. And then we were like, well, maybe we should think about, we were like, well, once we've done one, it's like, should we do some more? Should we try again? Should we come up with another one? So we were kind of tinkering around. And we came up with the idea of saying, what if we were to take the whole kind of concept again of, because we like to look at sort of Japanese poetry and haikus, tankas, and any kind of other sort of that sort of type of poetry. And we thought, what if we were to take a situation where you take two totally unrelated images, because we wanted to do something for artists as well as poets. Our Kainku form is pretty much based around poetry exclusively, and you can take, as I say, found text, and then you make the poems out of it. But the Pareiku form, and we'll get onto the name in a second, we came up with the concept of that because we were like, what can we do to create a visual form that could be used by artists and poets alike, and maybe artists that might dabble in a little bit of poetry but don't write a lot of poetry, or might be inspired to write poetry, and vice versa. It might have the ekphrastic kind of visual element, for poets as well to work with. So we went and said, okay, and I come up with the concept. I think it's a Shakespearean term. I think it's called pareidolia. Is a way where you tend to see tendency to see images in random visual patterns. So we were just like, okay, what if we take two totally different images and then try to find a way to link them together via a poem? And what we did was we took the kind of haiku structure. So we got the pareidolia and the ku, so that's why it's called pareiku. So it's almost like pair. I think the word kind of sort of like says you've got a pair, you've got two pictures. And we said, okay, so we wanted to create a bridge between the two. And we said, okay, but instead of doing the typical haiku poem, let's flip the whole. Usually, I think the kind of Western view of haikus is 5-7-5. So we said, what about 7-5-7 syllable pattern? So it's when you start writing it and you start going into the haiku mode, and then you do the bridge, you suddenly might say to yourself, hang on a minute, I've got to flip the script in terms of how the syllable count is worked out. So that's what makes it unique to us. That's what we wanted to make, something that was unique to us, but at the same time, very kind of sort of interesting how the concept works. So you basically got to go out there and find a couple of unrelated images, and then find a way to bridge them together with a very short poem. So I
love that so much. I was like, that just sounds like even for me, it's like I don't. Like poetry doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. I wrote the children's poem, and I wrote like a couple poems in one of my horror books, but they took me like hours to come up with like just like a few lines versus like writing. I can write paragraphs in that time, but it's like, but already like it gets my mind going. I'm like, that sounds like tons of fun. I actually like want to try that actually with like two different types of like pictures and just finding the connection. That just sounds like a good time to me.
It totally is. And I mean, because of the way we kind of geared it up is that I feel like it's not difficult because we're not asking you to write, 10 lines, 30 lines, crazy amounts of words. I mean, I think with haikus, it's more about what you do with the actual words themselves. It makes you a very good editor because you have to really kind of sort of pare down to the bone what you're going to put in there. And you never want to write a haiku that has got something where every word's got to count, every syllable, single word has got to count in as much that you want to make an impact with it. And your typical haikus are based around nature. But with the pareiku, it's more kind of, you've got a lot of flexibility there. I mean, and we're kind of veterans when it comes to writing poetry, myself and Sandrine. But we've found that they're very quick and easy to write. Is that once you get over kind of like once you've got the images in your mind and you pair them next to each other, that's when your subconscious tries to just think, okay, because humans are very much into trying to find connections between things. And if you kind of position these two things next to each other, pair them up and say, what connection can I find? You'll generally find that after a while your mind will just actually make a connection, a funny kind of connection. You'll think, yes, that's my nucleus of the poem. And as we say, it's such a short amount of writing that even if you're not used to writing poetry, you can be inspired to write poetry, and also vice versa. I think it's a very good inspirational tool for poets to come at, because sometimes, like you say, with your comic books and stuff, things are more visual rather than you want to describe something visually rather than just with words themselves.
Well, and I just love that, like finding the connections between two different pictures themselves, just because that's even symbolically, like so much of poetry is like symbolism. It's like symbolically, I just love that idea of just like there's a lot different here and there's a lot different here, but there is always some kind of connection there, and that's kind of the beauty of that. So I love that so much.
Yeah, thank you. So so that's our second form that we created. Sandrine actually has one called Sisku, which I can't remember if we discussed it on the Diabolic Shrimp show.
Yep.
I'm sure we did. But so technically, so I can't lay claim to that because that's all Sandrine's baby. But so that's three, and we're just thinking that now we've done three, is that what's to stop us from doing more and then writing an entire book? I mean, we wrote an entire book of Kainku and Sisku. So Sandrine kind of brought the visual element, and I think that's what was so cool about doing the Pareiku, because that's really a kind of sort of way we managed to establish moving into the visual kind of sort of genre, as I say, because we've always kind of sort of started things off from a poetry background, from our own poetry backgrounds. But Sandrine is a photographer; she's dabbled in a lot of kind of art sort of concepts. My father is an artist, so I channeled my creativity through his kind of sort of stuff that he gives to me through my DNA, and ultimately that's how we were thinking that we could, in theory, keep coming up with these ones. I think the difficulty is the control over it, because if you tell people about it, they tend to go off and do their own ones, and you don't know whether they're following the form or the rules properly. So what we try to encourage people to do is say, why not submit them to us? And we could give you your feedback, or we could give you kind of valuation and say, what, this is a really good one. This follows the rules perfectly. And we might even feature it in our magazines or an anthology or something like that in the future. So I think that's a real kind of incentive for people to come to us and say, look, we're the people that created it, and it's lovely the fact that you're having a stab at the form. So why not send it to us so that we, as I say, we can see whether it's good enough to actually put in our own magazines or even a future anthology as well.
Nice. So do you think you'll you mentioned like possibly having that in the future. Do you think you'll have like a section for Sisku and for like Kainku and for sorry, remind me of the name of this one again. Sorry, I was trying to get around it. It's Pareiku, right? Pareiku. I'm sorry. I was missing that second syllable. So yeah, Pareiku. So are you gonna have like a whole like section for like people's submissions, or?
Oh yeah, I mean we already do that. Sisku and the Kainku. So it's the Pareiku is, like you say, very, very new. We only just invented it towards the end of the year. So,
but yeah, we have some projects in the works. So those the two poetry forms are going to be put to use for sure in very specific projects. But the reason why I brought the visual factor into the poetry is like you, I'm a teacher. But I've taught to adults, so it's a very different kind of teaching.
They're
and
harder
at the
to teach.
time, it's the same because adults can be like kids when they're teaching environment. I know from experience that many people are visual learners, and many people are afraid of poetry as well, because of the way it was taught over the years in school, middle school, high school, university. I mean, I'm a former English major, so I've studied poetry, and the way poetry has been taught is very wrong. They teach you to fear poetry because they ask you to analyze every word, every syllable, and everything. So it's not enjoyable. Poetry is not enjoyable to people. They are scared of it because, like, I have to analyze this and that to make sense. Meanwhile, they should just embrace poetry for what it is. Sometimes the meaning of the poem is not obvious. So you just have to embrace it. So for me, adding the visual element adds an element of non-fear to the poetry, because people know they can use their own imagination, they can use images and things that stick to them. So it makes writing poetry less scary for most people. And I know from the people who've told me about my poetry from the Sisku, that's what they've experienced. So I know it must be right for the rest. And as a photographer, it's important to have photography too, as well.
I agree with you on that, though. I was like, I always thought it was weird that poetry was always taught as this really structured, tense thing, you know, and poetry has structure, just like all writing has structure. But it's like, but it was always meant as that, like poetry throughout history was kind of more like it was more the free form kind of thing. And in a way, it was kind of more like the free writing, even though it had structure. It was kind of like the one that was like away from like formal writing, but that's kind of how it's taught. It's so formal and so intense. And so, so I do appreciate myself like getting to see poetry. I've read your guys' poetry. I was like getting to see that very positive poetry and very it has structure and it has rules, but it's also not like vicious, I guess. It'd be like the word.
When you write short poems, I think, Josh, I mean, I've found the concept of when you've got actually structure and you've got short kind of sort of little things like the haiku or tanka or any of those other kind of ones with syllables. A lot of people are kind of sort of like they run away. They just think, oh, that makes it difficult. But to me, it's kind of just like I write tons of short poetry, and I think you can actually write a lot more poetry because of those. Because when you've got free form, I feel like you things
so
become
nebulous.
So I used to write 30-line poems every time, especially for National Poetry Writing Month, and I just I couldn't get out of that kind of sort of habit. And it was nice to begin with, but at the same time I thought I want to write more poetry, and I went the other way. I wrote sort of lots of short ones, and it's difficult to get me to write longer ones. Now I will do it, but I'm just kind of in love with the idea of being able to, the structures tend to I mean, there are kind of poetry structures or forms that will lend themselves to much longer kind of sort of things, but a lot of the poetry forms keep everything kind of sort of, as long as you find a theme or a concept, you can plug it into it and then you can get something out fairly quickly. You haven't got to sort of slave over something like a novel, a couple 100 pages and you've got to do drafts and so many things. A poem, you might have several drafts of a poem, but at the same time, it's just when you've got the forms themselves. So that's why I've never kind of sort of shied away from or been upset about kind of forms or rigid structures, because it forces me to be more creative, to do something and to make every single word count with those. Because I think when you can say do absolutely anything, I always kind of fall down and just think, where am I going to start? Because if I've got the whole world available to me, but I don't know, that's just too broad. I need to go in. Even if you went and said, okay, write a poem about snow, it's just, but how would I write it? Do I want to write it with a specific form, or do I want to write it free form? And will free form mean I've got to find lots and lots of reference points to do that? Whereas a structured kind of sort of poem, like say if you're going to write a haiku about snow, you're really, really forced to make every single thing count. Otherwise, it's going to just be boring. No one's going to care.
Yeah, and well, it gives you kind of that guide path too, which is nice. And I mean, you brought up a great point too. For just real quick, it's like I always teach when I teach kids how to write. I teach them like 99 word fiction where they have to do it in like 99 words. But I teach them like write as much as you like for this little story, but then you had to go back through and kind of cut out some of those and teach like it really teaches you how to be a better writer. And I think in some ways that's actually what poetry does. It's like write as much as you like, but then you have to go back through and work it into 757, like you said, and that really helps you, like, I guess, learn the magic of words and get better at working with the clay that you're working with.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Josh, thank you so very much for being with us for the interview. We really appreciate having you. And I mean, I would listen to you for hours because you definitely have you perfect artist to be invited on our show.
Oh, thank you.
You're inspirational, you're positive, and it's all we're looking for, really. So we're very, very grateful for your presence today. If you want to stay for the second half of the show, by all means stay, but there's no obligation for you. You can go if you want right now. But we're going to go on the next part of our show. So
groovy. Okay, well, it was such a blast to have both of you. I was like, I am going to bounce because I do have some family stuff, but sure, I am going to watch it though on your YouTube. So that's so I'm going to be watching it while I do a little bit of work here. I gotta go cook dinner, unfortunately.
Yes.
So I'm a terrible cook too. I'm a religious cook. Everything's a burnt sacrifice or an offering or something, So but we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna try something new. But honestly, it was such a blast to get to see both of you again, get to be back on again, and I'm looking forward to down the road not only seeing more more from both of your work, actually, and getting to read more always, but also getting to have you back on Diabolic Shrimp as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great night.
You too.
So, guys, it was a fun interview. It was so much fun. I hope you really enjoyed it. But now the second part of our show has started. We're very, very excited. It's a lot of excitement for us today. Not having Josh here, but we have so many pieces of news to share with you. Josh transitioned really nicely into one of them, which was the Pareku. So we introduced that to you. We don't need to repeat ourselves. We wanted to remind you that today, issue 6 of our Auroras Blossoms Poetry Journal is out. It's available for purchase pretty much everywhere there's an online bookstore. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo Script, whatever you can think of, it should be online by now. So you can check out issue 6 at the address below here, and we hope you check it out because we have fantastic poetry from I think 11 poets, so fantastic pieces, inspirational, positive, anything you can think of positive, and boy do we need positivity and inspiration right now. So we hope you check out issue 6 and you leave us comments and reviews, and you can just email us to share your thoughts. We love hearing from you and to know that our magazine has its impact and makes you feel inspired and, positive in your routine.
And if you want to submit to us, we strongly suggest that you look at the other 5 issues that we've got. I mean, I think issue 6 is a massive milestone. We've done plenty of issues now. We've got a lot of back catalogue to get through, and you don't want to ignore the previous issues that we've done. Every single one of them is jam-packed full of there's things like social media tips and tricks. We have useful writing tools that's both Sandrine and myself have written together, and as I say, we've just featured a lot of people that have we try to have a very diverse array of poetry that we offer for people. It might be inspirational or uplifting, but it's certainly not run of the mill. We pick some of the best pieces that we can find, and everything is there to really kind of sort of give you an uplifting mood when you read them. So by all means, please check out the previous issues, and that is available on the issues section of our website as well.
Yeah. And now on to the major news we have to share with you today. So we have about, I think, four pieces of news to share with you today. So we are going to start with our new book, 30 Creative Prompts to Take Your Art to the Next Level. So this is our second prompts book. And this one is not just for writers, it's for artists as well. So we wanted to inspire as many artists as possible to create. And we have 30 creative prompts that can be used in many situations, used and reused to your heart's content. So if you want to do a whole month of daily prompts, you can do that. You can use it over the year. The choice is yours, but we know that you will enjoy the prompts because they really follow the concept behind Auroras and Blossoms, positivity and inspiration and family friendliness. So we know you will enjoy that book. And once again, please share your thoughts and feedback with us, as we love hearing from you. We love hearing if whatever we put out there is an impact, and we really want Auroras and Blossoms to be a home for artists of all levels. And as a reminder, we also accept content from 13 to 16-year-old artists as well. So we want the platform to be a home for young artists and adult creatives as well. So the book is available via all the online bookstores you can dream of. So that's it.
It's another digital offering that we've got. Our previous kind of sort of prompt books have focused on poetry because that's where we started as writers ourselves. But we're trying to be more expansive. We've been following the whole art path for a long time. So we want to allow people that are more visually inclined to think how can they use the prompts. I mean, ultimately, we have several things coming up this year that might be of interest to people to purchase the book, to then give them a kind of sort of primer for or give them kind of inspiration for those creative periods. I mean, there's National Poetry Writing Month in April this year. There is PoArtMo that we created, and that's why it's the PoArtMo show, which is Positive Art Month, and that is in June. We do that every June. We did it in June last year. We're going to be doing it again in June this year. November is National Blogging Month. There's National Novel Writing Month, I believe, around sort of October, November as well. So there's any number of sort of times. Maybe even you want to start your New Year's resolution when you're sort of writing and think, okay, I could really do with writing more. Why not get the book and use that as a means to get yourself writing more and submitting to more journals and anthologies and prizes in the future. Inspiration is very difficult to come by sometimes, and we wanted to just give you a whole kind of series of kind of sort of prompts, as Sandrine said, to be able to come back to it again and again and think maybe this will spark off some particular sort of chain of events, and you'll do a whole month's worth, and then you could send off a whole month's worth to journals or other artistic sort of places, or even set up your own website, with your own kind of sort of entries. But that is available right now. We've gone past the pre-order stage. It's been published and it's available in all the major people that we list below. So
now we have the biggest news of them all.
Can it get any bigger? It's getting so big. I can't handle
about this because this is something that we were not able to do before, and that our book distributor, Draft to Digital, is allowing us to do now through the royalty splitting concept they created and they launched. So starting with issue 6 of Auroras and Blossoms Poetry Journal, we are now offering ongoing royalty payments for the artists that are selected to appear in our magazines, in anthologies. So that's a big thing. So as I said before, we were not able to do it before because our book distributor didn't give us the option, but now is giving us the option with royalty splitting. So it's very important to remember that we are using Draft to Digital as a book distributor. So there's a few rules. We are not the ones paying the royalties directly. It's Draft to Digital doing it. So basically, if you want to get royalties for the book sales, so the issues, magazine issues, and the anthologies in which you will appear, and the issue that you're appearing now, issue 6, so you must opt to receive royalties. So it means that you have to open an account with Draft to Digital. And the second rule is that royalty payments will be allocated on a per piece basis for each piece featured in an issue in our anthology. So we're actually offering something that is not done very frequently. Usually when you get a deal from a publisher, you get royalties, and those royalties, sometimes they're about 5%, so on and so forth. So, and it's for an entire book that you would write. We are offering royalties on a per piece basis, which is something we're very proud of doing, because we really, we know the pandemic has hit people hard, and we really wanted to do something to help our fellow creatives and to make sure that they felt respected. They felt their work was respected. And we wanted to offer them something that, allows them to continue creating and motivates them to continue creating. So royalty payments for us is really a big steps in our journey as well. And we are very excited about being able to offer this in anthologies, but also in the magazine issues.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a lot of poetry journals and literary journals out there, if they do offer any kind of sort of monetary reward, they'll allow you to submit for free, but then they won't pay anything at all. And we went down the route saying, look, we do have submission fees. They're very, very low. They're there to help us filter out the kind of premium submissions to us. And as a reward for that, we're offering people royalties for that. You do have to, if you don't set up the account with Drafter Digital, you can't claim your royalties, so you'll have to do it before we actually put the issue into publication. But considering that we publish very regularly with our magazines and anthologies, there is an excellent opportunity there. And our things aren't available online, so people will have to buy copies. And every time you encourage someone to buy a copy of the issue of the magazine or anthology you're featured in, you're going to be making some money. So even if you've had to pay our very low submission fee to enter into our magazines or anthologies, you're looking potentially this is going to be royalties for life off of that publication, and you'll easily earn back your money and potentially a lot more in the future. But it's a very, very big deal, as we said, simply because we don't believe anyone in this kind of sort of arena is really kind of sort of focusing on that particularly very heavily. Because as we say, it's either you have a free entry, or you have to pay to enter an anthology, and you won't get anything in return. And that's what we kind of sort of try to build up as a platform, Auroras and Blossoms, is that not only are we offering royalties, we're offering perks and other kind of sort of things that juicy kind of sort of things that we think people will be really into. We're offering things like further submissions. Like if you were to enter an anthology, you could enter our magazines as well. Providing you pay the entry fee, which a lot of other kind of journals wouldn't do. And we're also offering lots of other kind of sort of little tips and treats and things. You could end up getting a copy of the magazine that you're featured in. You could also be interviewed by us and all manner of other kind of sort of things. It's worth checking out our website to find out exactly what you can actually get, because we're all about trying to give back to people. And as I say, it starts at the raw payments thing. That's one of the biggest things we could ever do. But the other kind of things we offer, all the little perks that we offer, I think are far more generous, I think, than you'd find when you just enter a run-of-the-mill journal to get your poem published.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see on the screen as well, we had a kind of banner to let you know where to find out more information. But in our FAQ, you can find out more details about the whole royalty payment thing. But as I say, it's a real big game changer for us, we think, because it's very difficult to find paying kind of opportunities in the future. And yes, you might have to pay a very small fee to enter, but we believe that that will kind of sharpen you up to send your best work to us. And we have to be considered in the equation as well. We have a lot of editing, marketing, promoting. We have a lot of formatting and publishing things to sort out with the issues. So we don't want to coast through and do things for free. So ultimately, that's why we now charge a very low fee to enter our magazines and our anthologies. But we believe that it's the product that comes out of it that's the quality sort of product, and you'll have the potential to sell it to your friends, family, and colleagues, and get something out of it. Get something serious out of it for yourself as well. So,
very good. Now, a change for our magazines. We have decided to run a readers column for our next issue. So we're starting with the next issue of our magazine. So what we want to do is we want to read from you. We want feedback, we want comments, and we want questions. So we can create the best magazines possible, the best issues possible that you're very proud of reading, and as artists you're proud of recommending others. So every issue from now on will publish a question from 2 readers, and of course our answers with it. So if we select, you would have to contact us, of course, via email and send us your questions. And if we select your questions, you will win a free PDF copy of the issue in which your questions will appear. So that's another big piece of news, because, as I said, we wanted to make the issues as interesting as possible, and we believe that with your help, we can make that happen. So all you would have to do is just contact us via email. You go to our website and then hit contact on the menu section and just send us your questions. That's all you need to do. And if we select If we select your question, then you will get a free PDF copy. That's quite a good deal.
Because how much do we sell the copies for, Sandrine? It's about $8 or $9, isn't it? I think it depends on whether we're doing a promotion or not. But so you're getting something that's the best part of $10 when it comes to a freebie. Just simply for asking us a question. It can be a question related to our inspirational nature, or it could be in relation to poetry. How we come up with our sort of concepts and things. The sky's really the limit. We'd like it to be kind of sort of focused around the themes of inspiration or positivity. But that just means that you can literally ask us anything around in relation, as long as you can connect it to those themes. You can ask us literally anything.
Yeah, basically, if you want also tips to promote yourself better as an artist, that could be questions you could ask. You're looking for productivity tools. How do you get featured on a blog or podcast? What are the tasks or duties of editors of magazines, and so on and so forth. Something that is related to the magazine or to art in general, with, of course, a positive and inspirational twist, if you can add that to it, because that's basically what we're looking for as well. But the questions really should be around art. And if you don't want to make it about the magazines per se, that's okay, but make it about art. And finally, it's a lot of news for us to share today. The big, another big piece of news for those who have followed me for a while. You probably know that I co-founded a photography collective 2 years ago, almost at the same time as Auroras and Blossoms, actually. And over time, things have changed, and I wanted to open the collective to more artists and not just photography. I love photography. Photography is my thing, but I love connecting with different types of artists. And the collective really fitted Auroras and Blossoms, because the goal was positivity, inspiration, and telling stories that make people think. So earlier last year, I think it was in August or September, we brought the collective, which used to be called F Point Collective. We brought it under Auroras and Blossoms, and we renamed it PoArtMo Collective because I wanted it to be more inclusive of other types of artists. So now it's an entire part of Auroras and Blossoms, and actually part of PoArtMo as a result, or Positive Art Moves artistic movement that we started last year. And we started welcoming more artists to the group. My co-founder decided to leave because she was very, very busy with other things. So that leaves me as the founder of PoArtMo Collective, and I've been working with David, of course, as always, as my partner in crime, business crime, for the collective as well. So PoArtMo Collective is going to be officially relaunched very soon. We do not have an exact date yet, but it will be relaunched very soon. So we have a book in the works. We have I'm bringing back David, who disappeared. Here you go. We have a book in the works. We have a mini exhibit in the works. So basically a marketing campaign in the works to relaunch officially that collective. So basically PoArtMo Collective is a group of artists dedicated to releasing inspirational and positive projects. And those projects will include ebooks as well as exhibitions. So that's basically what it is. We'll tell you more about it in a few weeks, probably on our next show, because we have more news to share with you on our next show. And I think that's it for today. That's more than enough. But I just wanted to talk about it really briefly, because that's another exciting piece of news for Auroras and Blossoms in general, because the collective really has that inspiration and positive idea behind it, which I think will benefit the platform and will allow other artists also to take advantage of. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the PoArtMo collective. The reason it's such an interesting proposition is that if you look at me and Sandrine and how we've kind of sort of built ourselves up, is that we've been much more popular and more kind of well received from people as a duo rather than our own individual kind of sort of things. And it's just we found it's phenomenal how when you team up with other people, how much more of an impact you can have on the world in general. Than say just as an individual artist. You might write something amazing yourself over many years and then take a long time to promote that, but we find the reception that we get from people because of our platform and because of what we do and because of all the projects that we're doing, and that can only increase exponentially when you've got other members as well, because each member of the collective will bring something unique to the table. And just like Sandrine and myself, how we bring something unique to the table with our particular partnership, is the same for the collective. You know, we've got a couple of other members right now, and we hope to grow it to much bigger levels, and then tap into the network of all the other people, because everybody's going to have their own network, individual network that they can focus on that we might not be able to get into ourselves, me and Sandrine, all the other members, and vice versa for them. You know, they can then be introduced to people that they wouldn't normally get to speak to through our audiences. So that's why it's a very exciting thing. And with the collective as well, it's also forces you to kind of focus your efforts more on creating projects and things. So you won't drift aimlessly thinking, what should I do? You know, am I going to sit around and focus on a novel that I haven't written yet? Well, no, maybe we can encourage you to actually do that, or encourage you to take up some other type of art form or something like that in order to free up your creativity and actually just be more recognized yourself for what you do. Because we don't want we want artists to be recognised and ultimately, hopefully, paid at some point in the future for what they do as well. And that's the whole point of the collective, and us, leveraging our kind of different strengths, and then putting that all together into one particular package, and promoting art throughout the world. So.
Yeah, and we want to welcome a few more members as well. So we have I have the link here down below if you want to check out the page. So we're open to accepting a few more members, but it's going to be a very selective process, because we really want the type of artists who are not just interested in challenging themselves and, of course, being paid for the hard work, which is normal, which is makes complete sense. But we also want artists who want to be inspirational and positive in every aspect of their art and their lives as well, so they have the right type of energy for the projects we want to put out there, like exhibitions, as I said, and ebooks. So and we do not want to have like 5 million members either. Our interest would be to have a maximum of 10 people. Really, that would be the max. So the way we're going to select people is going to be quite how should I say? I can't find the word. No, I'm not going to say rough, because that's not the word, but we're going to be very, very selective in the way we make our decisions. And David and I, with the other members of the group, will be deciding who goes in as well. But you're more than welcome to submit to us and send us your press kit and examples of your work, so we can have a look at it and tell you if you would be a good fit. But if you've already been published in our magazine issues and our anthologies, you are likely to be accepted. There's a great chance for you to be accepted. So for those who might be interested in joining the collective, our best piece of advice would be to read one of our issues or read one of our anthologies to understand the kind of art that we love. Basically, the kind of inspirational and positive art that we think would be a good fit for the collective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's it, I think. Do we have other things to talk about? I don't think so.
I think we could really sort of plug that we've got our creative journal, the Creative Arts Journal, That was mentioned in the previous kind of episode, but it's worth bringing up again that, because we're on issue 6 now of the Poetry Journal, we actually have issue 1 of the Creative Arts Journal. And whereas the Poetry Journal was exclusively featuring poetry, the Creative Arts Journal was got lots of other things like short stories and photography and art and drawing and things.
So many good things, and we have more news coming.
Yeah, more magazine news in the next episode.
The news we share today, we're gonna feature them on our blog as well. So each piece of news will have its own blog post, so you have more information, so that it's not overwhelming as it might be right now for those watching us. So yeah, we will the royalty payment news. We have a blog post coming on Thursday, so in 2 days from today, where you will have all the complete information about how royalty payments is going to work, and the readers column as well, and all the things. The parade crew we've already announced earlier last year. And the PoArtMo collective is coming as well. So as I said before, we do not have a specific relaunch date yet, as we're very busy with all our projects, but this is coming in the next few weeks for sure. So yeah, that's it. So keep an eye on our blog for the news that we shared today, but for more details about every piece of news individually.
And make sure to read your newsletters, because we've had a lot of people that are asking us questions about things like when things are coming out or if they've been selected or other kind of things. And they're all through the emails that we send out to individuals. And we regularly send out news on our newsletters as well that covers a lot of the questions that we're being asked. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah. And we also, one thing that we want to pinpoint as well is that we contact featured artists in our issues. We contact them individually. We send them emails to let them know when they're published and so on and so forth. And most of the time people don't respond, so we don't know if you received our emails. So if you hear this today, please email us to let us know that you've received our emails, because we're not sure. We don't have acknowledgement of receipts or anything from many people. And it makes our work very hard, because we have to email people over and over and over again when we really don't have that much time to spend on that. So that's why we sign you up for a newsletter, because we do not have time to contact each person several times over the course of weeks. So the newsletters make things much easier for us to contact you. So if you haven't heard from us via the newsletters, please check your spam folder, because our newsletters probably landed there.
And it's all the more important as we move forward with our royalty offer for our magazines and anthologies, because if we can't get in touch with you, then you can't set up your draft to digital account, and we can't pay you royalties, and we are forced to publish the magazine, and you forfeit your royalties. So it's very, very important that you keep an eye on the news that we put out there, because if you're a selected artist in any future magazine that or anthology we publish now, and you qualify for royalties, you have to act on our notification to say how to set that up, because if you don't, you will forfeit that. And that's why it's very, very imperative that you read the news that we offer, because there are very, very important things that you need to interact with us. It's not a case of, you can just leave it and let it slide and we'll take care of it. We have to have the interaction from you, because you're subscribed to us. And if you do interact with us, then we can work with you and give you something very unique that people aren't getting at the moment. That's also.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, thank you all so much for watching today. We hope you enjoyed Josh's interview. We sure did, that's for sure. Thank you so much once again. Have a wonderful month of January, and we will see you again in February. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again next month.